Lord, you are the fountain of life, restorer of my soul. I worship you today. Lord, you are the fountain of life, restorer of my soul. I worship you today. Lord, you are the fountain of life, restorer of my soul. Worship you today. Lord, you are the fountain of life. You restore my soul. I lift my hands to worship you today. Soul, and drink, for there's peace, there's joy.
Hello everyone, this is Charles Zuta, your host of the Fountain of Life podcast, and it's exciting to come your way with another episode this Sunday. Thank you so much if you've joined us through any of our platform. We have a very wonderful package for you today, and I believe that this time you spend with us will be really valuable and add something to your life. We are continuing with our discussion on escaping the anxiety trap, how to worry less and care more. So continue to join us, and I believe that this hour is going to be really wonderful time with you. See, last week we had a beautiful time and very informative time with Dr. Dorothea Addo, and we saw the damaging effect of yielding to excessive worrying and anxiety on our health. Today we'll continue with looking at the effect of worrying and anxiety on our relationships. Yes, relationships. It does have an effect, and I believe that our guest today will help us to understand the dynamics of how this works. If for any reason during this discussion we touch on anything that you think you need or you think is important to you and you need extra help, I will recommend that you get in touch with a licensed or a professional counselor to deal with that. Whatever we share here is purely for information purposes, and it's not meant for diagnosing or treating any specific relationship dysfunction or any anxiety or worry dysfunction. So I recommend you book an appointment with a professional licensed counselor to address any issues that during this discussion it might come up. So today it's a real privilege to share this podcast with a very wonderful person. I've known him for several years, both in church and in professional life. He is an international communications and publishing consultant, and he's also worked as a senior communication and publishing consultant at the World Bank, Washington, D.C. Before leaving Ghana in 2002, he's working at the World Bank. Richard had headed African Christian Press, a Christian publishing house that is based in Accra, Ghana. In Ghana, together with his wife Vivian, they've ministered in churches across various denominations and have featured regularly on premier radio program for relationships, woman to woman, on GBC FM in Accra. While in the US, they have been featured speakers at churches, weekend programs, retreats, and conventions, and they have also ministered in Africa and across Europe as well. But since 2007, they have hosted a monthly tele-seminar on relationships and marriage organized by the PENSA-sponsored Disciples of Christ, or BC line, targeting young people across US and Canada. right? Since 2017, this program has become a monthly podcast to internet listeners across the globe via the Be Inspired podcast network, and is linked to radio stations in the Caribbean and in Argentina, and now receives over 60,000 direct online participants per program. Richard is also a very publisher. He has authored a couple of books, The Genesis of Marriage, and co-authored another with Prof. Stephen and Mrs. Georgina Ade. There are a couple of books now in the works. There's a third one that is Help, I Want to Get Married, targeting young people. And a fourth one, Your Family, Investing in the Next Generation, about parenting. And the fifth one, Help, I Want to Stay Married. These are all underway. So if there's anybody who we should have here to discuss the effect of worry and anxiety on our relationships, Elder Richard Crabbe is more than qualified. And it's my single privilege, as well as you are guest as well, your exciting and your desire to listen to him. So welcome to the program, Elder Richard Crabbe.
Thank you, Reverend Zuta. Pleased to be here.
Thank you. So last week we saw how relationships impact, how anxiety and worries impact our medical health. And we also saw from the previous episode how the same anxiety and worries, affect our overall mental health and all of that. Today, we want to go a bit deeper. Let me ask you, is there any other definition or dimension of worry? What is the threshold in relationships that you consider that, this is going to be a problem? We've seen the medical scope. We've seen the, psychological. Is there anything different in terms of definition and scope when it comes to relationships that you can say now is going to be impacting me?
Well, with all the definitions we've already received, I think when it comes to relationships, the point to be concerned about is that all the things that the doctors have said, the psychologists said, the doctor said, now you apply those things between individuals. Now it's not one person experiencing it. Now it's that person behaving that way, and then that behavior affecting someone else. And that's why it assumes an even wider dimension, and perhaps to say a much stronger impact, because now whatever it is that the person is going through, whether it's worry or anxiety, now it's affecting somebody else. And that's where it gets really tough, because does the person really know what they're dealing with? Maybe, maybe not. Usually they don't. And then that becomes something that agitates the relationship on both sides, because, John does something that affects Mary, or, vice versa. And what happens the moment he does something, she responds. That's how relationships are, you see. So, and is the response what he expected? What often happens then is, because both worry and anxiety usually lead to negative actions, or actions that are more likely to be perceived as negative, then they tend to have a negative impact on the relationship as a whole.
Wonderful. So by any other name, worry is still worry, whether it's through the lens of the doctor or through the lens of a therapist, it is still what it is. Having said that, now tell us, just go into a bit more details. How does worrying impact our relationships? You may consider a range of relationships, whether it's between two platonic friends or it's between married couples, or what is really, really wrong, and the impact of worry and anxiety on our relationships.
Okay, so I tend to think that worry tends to be more internalized. You know, I worry about something. People may or may not know. But because of what I'm worrying about, and when we're talking worry, we're talking of the thoughts we might have, the images that go along with it, the emotion. I'm worrying, about, oh, will I pass this exam? And the interesting thing is anxiety. When you look up synonyms, anxiety is one of the synonyms of worry, you see. Yeah. But here you have, whether it's a thought, image, or emotion, or even action. All of these things go to show there's something troubling you. Worry by its very nature is not positive, you see. So we like to think of it, especially when you're dealing with um, couples or with individuals, two individuals, as you said, platonic friends. It's a feeling of or expression of great concern, you know, but often misplaced, but often misplaced. You know, I'm worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. Well, should you? There is some, you know, usefulness in thinking about tomorrow, but worrying in terms of, to the point where, I don't even think I should go out because I just heard on the news, there were some shootings in our neighborhood. So you're not going to go out because you're worried you may be shot. Or think of how your friend wants to come and visit you and suddenly say, don't come. And they're wondering, wait a minute, we've had this agreement for a long time. What's going on here? You see. And it's usually when we worry, it's usually about things we cannot fix. You see, you can't stop people shooting around in your neighborhood. You can't stop the guy who drives, the way he likes. You can talk to them, but can you really? So you're worried, I hear, the accident rate among teens is up. So you will not let your child drive. I worry what will happen if my child drive. I worry he may have an accident. I worry she may have an accident, so I don't want her to drive. So when are they going to drive? When they leave your neighborhood? Or now it's not only your neighborhood, it's teen accidents are up. So what do? You see. So that's the kind of thing, you know, we need to watch out for, even just between friends, you know. But the problem is that naturally we project our worries onto whoever is close to us. Platonic friend, a close partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance. Your marriage, it's even more magnified because you're together, you know? So the closer the friendship, the more it can be magnified. The worrying aspect can be magnified. And that's why it, it's something that we need to deal with as quickly as possible because we can, let me, um, I'm going to use this term advisedly. We can quote unquote infect others with our worry. We may worry so much, others around us also begin to worry simply because we are around them, you know. But what happens is who want always to be in a negative mood. So then people begin to fall away from you. People begin to avoid you if you worry so much, you know. Your kids might learn how to drive without telling you. And then what do? You see. And then you worry even more, and it switches to anxiety as well because oh, now they're not here. That's a whole different thing, also, you have to deal with. So, you know, yes, in one way, it's good to worry because it keeps us on guard. But then If we don't place limits on our worry, they will, or our worries, they will dictate how our life should be. And most of the time, worry cripples rather than energizes.
Right. Okay. So I like the last expression you just mentioned. Worry cripples instead of energizes.
Energizing, right.
Yeah.
And
Just
let me pick up from there just
yeah.
to
Go ahead.
throw a
Yeah.
little more light on it. You
Mhm.
know, so they're two friends. We want to do things together. But there's this friend who's always one, I'm not, I don't know, I don't think we'll succeed. What is this? Why? Because I don't know, the way things are going, I don't think we will succeed in this business venture. After a while, you're just worn down by this whole thing. And it's just some people might talk about negative energy. It's just that this person brings you down, to use very simple language. They bring you down. And after a while, it's easier not to be near them because the closer you get to them, the more you get sucked into their worry, especially if they're refusing to deal with it. That's why we need to be careful when somebody brings to our attention we're worrying for nothing, for example, because after a while, they may stop telling us anything. As we say, they may vote from us with their feet. And then we don't see them around. And then what does that do? That makes us also anxious, which is
Right. So
also in itself not very good. Yeah.
yeah. So two things. I'll ask a follow-on question from the perspective of
Mhm.
uh, the person who is constantly worrying and anxious. What I tend to hear, in a relationship setting with one party who is prone to worry and anxious, is they complaining that the other person doesn't care about me, or my husband doesn't care about me, or my friend doesn't care about me.
Mhm.
But really, if you sit back and analyze, it is not that they don't care about you, but it's something. Can you speak a bit, to that? Because their perception may be a bit different from
Mhm.
the other party.
Yeah. Okay. So now moving to anxiety, which is a synonym of worry, but not
Yeah.
exactly the same thing. I said worry tends to be more internalized. And then when we voice it, it kind of drains the energy from the other person also, you see, when we do it persistently. Now, with anxiety, I like to think of it as the what ifs. You see, an anxious person, okay, let's go to New York. Hey, what if there's a snowstorm? Why are you thinking? And usually, people who are anxious, people who have what psychologists might call anxiety disorder, yes, there is something, as I think you heard it from the psychologist, you know, they tend to think of the worst in any situation. You know, you're going to take an exam. What if I don't pass? Why don't you think, what if you pass? You see, for people who are anxious, they tend to take the negative side of it. You know, the truth of the matter, and all the literature bears witness to this, all the scientific, psychological literature about this bears witness to the fact that every one of us is anxious. But as with everything, there are levels. Some amount of anxiety is important just for our very survival. You know, what if I don't have food tomorrow? That should spare me to make sure I have food available for tomorrow. So there's a storm coming. What if I can't go out? Hey, this storm, it could cause, it could make it difficult to go out. Okay, so what do I do? I need to stock food. So some anxiety is good. But you could also be anxious to the point that you don't even go out at all. Again, that also paralyzes us. And that's where it really negatively impacts the relationship. So, whatever you want to do, this friend of yours, you know, is seeing the worst in it. Let's do a business. What if we lose the money? So you again, you're paralyzed. In the end, you don't even venture at all. And then somebody else does it. You see, they've made it. Maybe we should have done it, but it's already too late. But how? And then the worrying person is, how do I know that I will make it? You see. So whereas worry tends to be more internalized and voiced occasionally, anxiety tends to drive us even more, asking the what ifs, usually in a negative manner. And that's why, again, with relationships, anxiety can be so difficult. You see, if you have an anxious partner, they're wondering, okay, you go out with them, they're wondering, you're talking with somebody else. What if they're getting on better than she'll get on with me? He'll get on with me. So you find people who have anxiety attachment, they tend to be overly possessive. They don't want you to talk to anybody else. When they are upset with somebody, they want you also to be upset with that person. Otherwise, you are against them. But life, we can't do that in life. You see. And so the an anxious person, the child is gone out, child is I wonder, what if something bad has happened? Why are they not yet back from school? These days, I'm just, and they're worrying, plus they're anxious, and it's doing, as we heard the doctor say, it's doing all kinds of things to their bodies, totally unhelpful. And so next time, no, don't come. I will come and pick you myself. You know, so anxious parents or parents with anxiety attachment, they also tend to be overly protective of their children. A child can't go three doors to the neighbor. Hey, these days, there are dangerous things, so they're already worried. And then anxiety tells them, what if something happens to my child? So the child grows up only in the home, no friends. And then what happens to the parent? They're also concerned. Why isn't anybody coming to visit my child? Maybe they'll grow up without friends. But who's caused it? So you see, there's this, it's almost self-perpetuating. You know, Job would say, the thing that I feared has happened. I think I'll look up the reference and share, you know, that's what did you fear? What was he afraid of? What was he afraid of? And then it happened. Some would say it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe he kept thinking, maybe one day I'll lose everything. What if I lost everything? You never know. These days, anything can happen in the world. So, Bible even says every day Job would make sacrifices and pray to God on behalf of his children, just in case they had sinned against God. Not that they had actually, just in case. We might say, oh, that's great, praying for your children. But why would he think just in case they've sinned against God? Why didn't he pray positive things for them also? That they would obey God, that they would live for God, they would love God. Why would he focus? That's the only thing mentioned. That's all we have, in the book of Job, chapter 1. So from the Bible. So those are some of the things that make anxiety in a relationship it's also very draining, but it's also one that it's like you're on a string, you do something and no, 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 I can't let you do that. Maybe it means this. So you're young back. So okay, let me stay here. The person is staying here too. Oh, it's not that I don't want you to have have other friends. But you see, the way you were talking with her, maybe it's a lady who's the way you were talking with the way she was looking at you. Guy has no idea the woman was looking at him some other way. But because his partner has anxiety attachment, they're reading things that don't even exist. You know, it's the same for men. A man sees, his girlfriend or somebody he has an interest in talking to somebody else, another man, since what if that man is making a move on her? I might be losing her. You haven't told her anything, but you're worried somebody else might have her. you know. So it's that kind of thing that can make life very difficult, you know. So in Job 3 verse 25, he would say, what I always feared has happened to me. What I dreaded has come true. I have no peace, no quietness. I have no rest. Only trouble comes. It's an excellent description of somebody filled with worry and anxiety.
Thank you so much, Elder Richard Crabbe. We call you Elder because you've been such a blessing to us over the years. And if you just joined us, you are listening or watching the Fountain of Life podcast, and I'm having a live conversation with Richard Crabbe, and we are looking at how to escape the anxiety trap,
Mhm.
or escaping the anxiety trap, how to worry less and care more. So thank you for joining us, and we have opportunity to be asking questions. So if you have any question that you think you might want Elder Richard to respond to or address, the information is scrolling at the bottom of your screen. You can either connect with us via WhatsApp, that is call 425-504-4957, or you can type your question into the chat box in YouTube or Facebook or whichever platform you are using to follow this podcast. So it's been fascinating so far. It looks like in relationships, when you have a partner that is anxious, you are always on a tether. You know, very very much on a short leash. I want us to begin to turn our attention to a bit of the redemptive part. So you can also share the link if you just join us and there's a friend or loved one you want to hear this conversation. Please share the link as well. So let us begin to bend the arch of our conversation towards what we can do towards the redemptive pathways.
Mhm.
So what are the signs? I mean, usually in any treatment or any diagnosis of any kind, you need to be able to know what the signs are and then how to interpret them accurately. So if I'm in an I am an observer and watching somebody going through this sort of thing, maybe a young couple who just started dating, and just to recap a bit, on what you just told us, you read in the news about some very hurtful things that, jealous lovers have done to people, even to the point of murder and all sort of things because they feel insecure. So it is very serious, what you are talking about. So discuss more the signs, that will alert us that the person we are dealing with is on the path to dysfunction in this relationship because of the worry. Because sometimes, we don't want to boil, like a toad. Slowly, 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 the temperature goes up and then we don't try to escape. So, what are the signs that we should be looking out for in our relationships to say that no, this is descending into dysfunction because of one party or a knack for being overly anxious?
Mhm. Well, w- okay. So first, we need to look at some of the ways, somebody who is driven more by anxiety behaves in relationships. I mentioned the jealous. Um, they can be overly protective of the children. Um, then the insecure. It's a word people misuse, so I'm being very careful about it. But this has to do with questioning your partner all the time. Where did you go? Who did you talk to? I mean, and you're wondering, maybe they've given you some reason to believe, they're talking to somebody else. But sometimes some people do that when there's nobody really on the scene and they're interpreting every action in that light. Maybe he doesn't love me enough. Maybe she won't think I'm good enough for her. So the least thing the person does, like I said, he goes out with her, his mindset is maybe I'm not good enough for her. They Anxious people have very low self-esteem or they have low self-esteem. So already they are discounting themselves as a worthy partner. The partner hasn't said anything or done anything at all. See, so the thing is inside the person, but because it's driving them, he sees her. So they go to a party, he sees her talking with another guy, and his first thought is, oh, look at him. He's wearing a suit. Well, I didn't wear a suit. Maybe she prefers somebody who wears a suit. Is that why she's talking to him? And look at how she's even smiling. The whole time we were coming, she hasn't smiled at me like that today. This is rolling all these things in the mind. So the moment she comes back to the table, who was that? What were you talking about? And it's what kind of relationship is this? You see. So one, how do we identify these things? Observe the interactions. Are your interactions more geared towards you answering questions all the time? What did you do? Why did you do this? Who did you do it with? Why did you take so long? All those things, they're not coming from, shall I say, a good position inside the person's mind, you know. But then there are two sides to it. If you find your partner is asking those questions, you need to ask yourself, am I doing anything that is giving them grounds, that is giving them reason to feel that way, to think that way? If husband and wife are they're sitting on the couch watching TV, phone call comes, husband looks at the phone, and then he gets up, doesn't say anything, goes outside to talk. He's there 30 minutes, he come back and he sits as if he's never gone anywhere. Is it valid for her to ask who was that? It is. And then is it okay for her to ask, why did you go out to talk? Why didn't you talk here? It's not true. What do you have to hide? You see, sometimes our own actions tend to create that, to create the anxiety or to trigger the anxiety in our partner. Now, if your partner is already anxious, then you will only feed that anxiety and make it worse. And what happens? Okay, so now I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to, when the phone call comes, I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. But the same person who complained, you got up and went out, the next phone call, if you sit there and talk, what will you hear afterward? I was here and you got a phone call and you were talking and you didn't talk to me. Why? Because they are anxious about you abandoning them for the one you're talking to. Sometimes I wonder why when he's talking with his friends, he's on the phone and he's so excited, but when he talks to me, he doesn't speak many sentences. Well, ask him why. Don't conclude he doesn't like you, or worse, he doesn't love you, or she doesn't love you, as the case might be. So we do this when especially when you find your relationship is characterized by you having to answer questions and explain yourself all the time, something is not right. And you need what you do, first of all, ask your partner why they do that, because they might not realize. The literature tells us, the therapists tell us, and the research tells us that many people who have, this heightened anxiety developed it from the time they were babies. Perhaps they cried so much and the parents ignored them. So what have they come to understand? Even when I'm in trouble, this person will understand me. Or parents who kind of, you know, do a bait and fish kind of thing, you know, if you do this, I'll give you this, and then you do it and they don't give you, you know, or when it's due, you say, oh, you did this too, or no, so I'm now subtracting this from it. And the child begins to have a warped understanding. Will I ever get what is due me? You see how early that's being developed? And so, over a series of experiences and over the years, the person might come to conclude, when people tell you they're going to do something for you, really, you shouldn't believe it. They won't do it. So now they've met the man or the woman of their dreams, or maybe they've just made a friend at school. The person says, "Oh, tomorrow I'll bring you my storybook to show you could be a child." Or the person says, "Oh, I'm going to get this contact for you." They don't believe it. And so, they say, "Oh, are you sure you're going to do it?" And they make statements like, "I'll see it when I believe, I'll believe it when I see it." You know, but how often are you going to tell your partner, "I will believe it when I see it"? So, what's the other word for that? Mistrust. And who wants not to be trusted? Because relationships are built on trust, even before you get into marriage. You see, even the parent child relationship is built on trust. If one person thinks, "I'm not going to get what I ask," sometimes it's the parent. This my son, even if I ask him to, pick this from the store, he won't do it. Or if I tell my daughter, fix this food or do this, she won't do it. So what do they? The parent does it and then complains that the child didn't do it. But they did it. They didn't even give the child the opportunity to disappoint them. Let me put it that way. you know. So again, we might be the ones who trigger the anxiety in our partners, our friends, even co-workers. And then because we are already anxious, it perpetuates it. And when we tend to be on the receiving end, we also can have a part to play in it by our behaviors and our actions. And so long as we are made aware of them and we redress, then we can be on the path to helping the person who has this heightened level of anxiety. We can help them do better. But it takes a long time because just think from the time they were babies, this person hasn't known trust. You knowing them for 6 months is not going to wipe away 20 years, or even if they're a kid. Maybe you met in high school, it's not going to wipe up 15 years of mistrust. That's why it becomes tough in relationships.
Thank you so much. I mean, I just can't stop wondering at the truths that you are sharing with us. It's just amazing. But, I just want to pick your brains a little bit. I'm sure you've counseled hundreds and hundreds of couples, in your years. If you can just briefly, things that you've had to help people with, how, if you put a ratio to it, maybe 1 in 10, 1 in 5, has anxiety, the impact of anxiety and excessive worrying played a part in some of the dysfunctions you've seen in the relationships that you've had to come in to help with?
Thank you very, very much so. Very, very much so. It's going to be difficult to put ratios on them, but what I can confidently say is that it has afflicted both men and women and children also, because sometimes we do chat with children, So it does afflict children also. Now, why is this happening? How do we help them? The first thing is to make them aware of the impact of their relationships. And very often, the people are not aware of their relationships, or what they're doing to their relationships. That's the sad part of it. They may not be aware at all of what they're doing to their relationship. So part of the counselor's role is to surface this. Now, the sad part is that the partner may have been so much on the receiving end that it has become normal for them. When they get home at 6 o'clock which is the usual time they get home at 6, they might hear, oh, you are home already. Oh, thank God. And you're wondering, why? I said I was coming home at 6. Why? Oh, well, I was just wondering about what? Oh, it's okay. But you never know what they were wondering about. The truth is that maybe they didn't really believe, you see. So when we're we're working, and that's why we like bringing both partners together at some point. You talk with them separately, and usually you will hear the one with the heightened anxiety and worry. They're talking of, I don't know, the way he's behaving or the way she's behaving. I have a feeling this relationship will not work. You know, I I don't know. Maybe she wants out, and I mean, I'm ready to go. I'm and or sometimes they might say we should even go our separate ways. And you wonder, where did this come from? You know, then you talk with the partner. So we like meeting them separately. You talk with the partner and they're saying, this is what I keep hearing. Something happens, and next thing I know is I'm tired of this marriage. I just want out. You know, or this relationship, I don't know where it's going. What do you mean where you don't know where it's going? And this is some, the person may even be planning a wedding, and then they're telling you they don't know where it's going. Why? Because they've been disappointed before. No, not because of a wedding, but maybe somebody promised them something big in their mind, maybe when they were kids. You see, now they're planning a wedding, something really special, and they're thinking maybe it's not going to happen. And the partner keeps saying, what are you talking about? You know. And so we need then, when we bring them together, you ask, well, has your partner done anything to make you feel this wedding will not come on, for example? And they say, no. I mean, and the sad truth is that often the person who is telling you, or even before you meet the partner, tells you all the negative things about them. When the partner is around, or even sometimes before you meet the partner, when they say all the negative things, they'll say, "Oh, but he's a very good person. I mean, since I met him or since I met her, it's been really, really good, And then you wonder, so where from this? And then you realize that what's happening is something that's built up over time, and it's only being reflected in the relationship now. The other thing is that, especially when we have romantic relationships, they're often closer person to person than a friend, because now you're talking of sharing your life together. You see, my friend can be my friend. I don't have to go home with him. I don't have, now I'm going to get married. I'm going to be with this person 24/7. What if, you know? And sometimes some people may get very offended, for example, at oh, he promised to fix the bulb, he didn't do it. Or he promised to take me out, or she promised to make my favorite food. And you're wondering, she didn't make it today. She says she'll make it tomorrow. Why are you so upset? But then it dates back way when they were a kid. Maybe for their birthday, the mom promised them a special meal, and it never happened. It's not wiped off their minds. This is the next big occasion. Is it really going to happen? Or is this person going to swerve me at the last moment? And then they're married now. The wife promises to make their favorite food, and it doesn't happen. Immediately, it triggers all those long buried feelings because they've not dealt with it. So, in the counseling setting, it's very important that the two partners are helped to see themselves, who they really are. Even for the person who is on the receiving end of the worry and anxiety, because for them it may have become normal. Because, oh, my wife, she'll talk when she'll talk, 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 and then stop. So you see, it's not having an effect on him any longer. And guess what she's doing? Oh, he doesn't care. I've always felt this way, and now I'm seeing it. I've talked about this several times. We've talked about this very many times, and he does nothing. Why? Because the partner has just decided, if I'm just going to jump at everything she says, I'm going to be a robot. And who wants to be married to a robot? Who wants to be around a robot or to be a robot for somebody else, so to speak? And the other thing is, who wants to be married to a robot? Because soon you realize this is not him, this is not her. So we tell people, if your partner, your spouse did everything you want them to do, you would not like the person they would become, because that's not the person you fell in love with. The one you fell in love with had all the things you are complaining about today. So, how is it that before it was okay, but now it isn't? Maybe it's because they've heard it so often and they can't take it anymore. Especially when relationships are starting, people tend to, oh, he will change. Oh, when we get married, she'll be better. That's why we say you go in with your eyes wide open and with your ears wide open. True love is never blind. The actions are all there. They only get magnified afterward.
Wow. Thank you so much, Elder Richard Crabbe. It's been a blessing so far. And we want to now go on. If you just join us, I'm having a conversation with Elder Richard Crabbe on escaping the anxiety trap, how to worry less and care more. And we are looking at the effect of relationships, effect of worry and anxiety on our relationships. And there's been tremendous amount of truth that we are hearing today. And you can share the link. And if you have any questions, you can please put it in the chat, and we are going to have Elder Richard deal with them. Now, can we quickly turn our attention to what we can do? So, what can outsiders do to support people who are struggling with anxiety and excessive worry? We are now seeing that it can be off-putting, it can be limiting, it can be crippling. You've seen that. So, if you're an outsider looking in, whether as a friend of somebody or a spouse or somebody, what can we do, to support people who are struggling with anxiety and with excessive worrying?
Thank you. Excellent question. You remember one of the things I said, what is often the ultimate is that people walk away from this person. People tend to avoid them. So the first thing we can do is to be a true friend. Years ago, I read a poster that said a true friend is the one who walks in when everybody else walks out on you. So, what does that mean day to day? Should I still be around this person? Well, you want to be a true friend, then you can be there, but then make it your aim to help this person. How do we help the person? First of all, give them an ear to start with, and then observe, then be honest with them. Bring to their attention. Are you aware that anytime I promise to do something, you undercut it by saying, well, if you will? Why do you say that after we've agreed? Like I say, oh, I'll visit you Saturday, 6:30. So, well, if you come, I just told you I'm coming. Why would you say otherwise? And the reason I say we have to be honest with them, because you see, they've done it so often, it's second nature. Whatever you say, they kind of put in a sting in the tail with a negative twist. So call their attention to it. Let them know this is what you're doing. If you don't believe I'll come, maybe I shouldn't come at all. Maybe I shouldn't even say I'm coming. You have to let them see the consequence of their action also. Don't only say, do you realize this is what you've been doing? Maybe if I listen to you, what if I didn't come? How would you feel? Let them understand the consequence of their actions. Then you'll say, you see, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. I knew this was what was going to happen. I knew you wouldn't come. But then you already said I wouldn't. So I just followed what you said. Let them see the consequence of what they're doing. It's also important, especially for married people. Or if anyone actually, friends, people, lovers, people in romantic relationships, married people, let the person see the effect of what they're doing on you and then on they themselves. Because often no one, or even no one with an authoritative voice, that's a voice they'll listen to, has actually confronted them with the truth. And I'm not talking confront, in a negative or aggressive manner. I'm talking, let me put it another way. No one has spoken honestly with them to say, you do this, and the way you talk with me, that's the way you talk with people. People are not going to like you a lot. And almost certainly what you might next say is, well, people don't understand me. I mean, and they might think they are being honest, but their honesty is rooted in maybe 20, 30 years of experiences, negative experiences, not necessarily the reality of what they're dealing with. Bring their mind to the reality. I'm here now. I am loving you. I am here for you, and I'm walking with you. Why don't you accept me at my word? Until I prove differently, take what I give you. Because for the first time in their lives, somebody will be challenging them to accept who the person is rather than to be framed by the person. So, what it means for us, outsiders who want to help somebody like that, I'm talking of outsiders, somebody else, if you want to help the person, what you really need to do also for yourself is to set the tone for how that person will make you feel about yourself. Don't get sucked into their worry or anxiety. So you have to know yourself. I'm an optimistic person. I'm this, I'm that. If you also worry, then there are two warriors or two anxious people. Ah, that that relationship, when we have relationships like that, he's worried, she's worried, they're always, it's not so much suspicion, but they always, I'm just thinking, I don't know where this relationship is going. I've just been wondering whether, we will really get married. The other person too is thinking the same thing. And they will fulfill their own prophecies. One time, one of them will say, let's call it quits, but they're also afraid of losing. Anxious people are also afraid they're going to be rejected. So they're clinging on, but they're doing everything to push you away. And that's why we need to let them see, you know what? If I listen to you 2, 3 times this week, I wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have done this other thing. Do you realize what that would mean for our relationship? How would you have taken that if I had listened to you? And then they begin to think. But then what they might do is they begin to spin it. Well, I'm just being realistic. You're not being realistic because I'm here and I'm your reality. And this is who I am. That's what I want you to take me for. Thank you.
All right, that is fascinating. Now, quickly, what about the person themselves, the individuals themselves with this problem, who are the center of a storm of anxiety and worry? They themselves, what do they have to do?
I think if you know this is how you are, seek help. Talk to a professional. If for you, worry tends to drive you a lot. Because I'm a believer in Christ, I love going to the Bible. Somebody who worried a lot was David. He wrote lots of Psalms. You know, my friend with whom I ate, he has now turned against me and joined other people against me. Was it really true? Some of it was true. But David was always seeing his enemies, you see. But the same David would talk glowingly of God. Help me, Lord. Do this for me, Lord. So, yes, as a believer in Christ, as somebody who believes the Bible, the Psalms are great. If you worry a lot, read the Psalms for yourself. Listen to David talk about himself. He didn't shy away. But more than that, what did he do? He would lean on God, would lean on God. Save me, oh God. You know, in you I trust. So he had a frame, excuse me, a frame of mind, or he had something to aspire to, you know. If my friends forsake me, my God will not. Okay? So he knew I will never be alone. Okay? Now that helps. Now, the Psalms are one thing, but you also need, so I said, you can seek professional help, talk to a counselor, you can talk to a therapist, but you have to be honest. Don't go and tell them, I'm losing my friends. They're going to ask you, why are you losing your friends? And you point fingers at your friends. But, say, this is how when something is going to happen, I just fret. I just think all the possible negative things. One of the things I ask, or my wife and I, we challenge people who are very negative about their relationships. We ask them, why are you thinking of the worst? Why don't you think of the best? Isn't that an alternative too? You're thinking, he will leave me. The way he's, I think he'll leave me. Why do you not think this other way also? Every relationship I get into, the thing is growing, and then suddenly he'll leave me for somebody else. So this one, that's why I keep asking him, where is he going and all this. I said, that's not the point. So since you got into this relationship, how has the person behaved? Is it like the others? And again, bringing them to the reality. So help the person to see today as today, not to see today as yesterday, because that's already gone. What they have to deal with is what's in front of them, and to make sure they get the best out of what's in front of them than the worst. So talk to a professional, be honest with yourself that you could be the cause why you're losing friends, etc. And then the third thing is that listen when those close to you are talking, because they may be speaking the truth that nobody has talked to you. And often it's those closest to us who see us in ways nobody else knows. So if you've tended to worry a lot, I would also say remember the words of Jesus, Matthew 6 from 25 onwards, Matthew in the Gospels, chapter 6 from 25 onwards. Which of you by worrying can add an inch to your life? So if I'm worrying about something and I can't change it, why should I continue to worry about it? Isn't that foolish? Shouldn't I put more energy into looking for a solution than to worry and allow that worry to cripple me so that I don't do anything but worry? Worrying people are those who say, someone should do something about this. Or sometimes they don't even say someone. Something will have to be done about this. This can't continue. We don't even know that this they are talking about. We don't know there's something that needs to be done, and we don't know who to do it. They take themselves out of the equation. But if you worry a lot, you have to be part of solving your own equation because you are the one worrying. Listen to what your friends may be telling you. And if you want to, you can ask them, I think I worry a lot. Why do you think I do so? They may not know, but a professional might help. And don't discount God's help also. I go to him with any worry I have because his word also says, have no anxiety about anything, But Jesus said, don't worry. What you will eat today, tomorrow, no. What you will wear, don't worry about it. But the one thing we can be sure, he said we shouldn't worry. We can place worry with work. It's even shorter than worry. And then we work so that tomorrow we have food rather than worrying, what if I lost my job? They say they are going to lay people off. Maybe I'll get laid off. I wasn't employed. Why do you not? So then very soon you are making mistakes at work. So why don't you rather put your energy into doing your best so that when they're deciding who to retain, your name will be on the list of those who will be retained. That's one way you can defeat worry and anxiety. They say they are laying people off. Who said your name is on the list? Put your energy rather to make sure you will be among those who will be retained. Those are ways in which we can defeat anxiety and worry.
Thank you so much. As we gradually draw a close to today's episode, I want to know if we have any questions for Elder Richard in this discussion so far. I see one that has come in from YouTube, and the questioner says, so if I'm a constantly worried person because of past experiences, what can I do? So, Elder Richard.
Yes, I think we've mostly answered that question. You already know. Great. So some of the things I said, talk to a professional counselor, but you're even on the way. You said because of past experiences, you see, because that's what a therapist will help you do. But sometimes we think we know, but it may not be all of it. And talking to a professional, maybe because you already have an idea, perhaps one session you might be fine. You say, oh, I get it. And then you will come up with ways to deal with it. Then I also mentioned you go to God, you pray, you read his word. I mentioned the Psalms. They're great just to read them and hear David expressing his heart to God. We need to develop that kind of a relationship. Some of us have been brought up to have this pious relationship with God. We're going for communion like that, and, God, you're even scared of praying. The praying is talking to God. Take a walk. Talk, God, I feel really hurt by this. Oh God, I'm very worried about this COVID thing that's sweeping through our office. It makes me scared. I'm so anxious. I don't feel like going to work tomorrow. God, I don't know, but I know that you hold tomorrow. So help me. Sure enough, he listens to us. So prayer is one. Philippians 4, 6, and 7 are verses that people have quoted through the ages. Have no anxiety about anything, but in prayer, and supplication or petition with thanksgiving, make your requests known to God. So instead of being anxious, why don't you turn it over to the person who can walk you even through that anxiety? So you will not, why don't you, instead of saying, what if I fail the exam? Why don't you begin to think, what if I pass? What's going to happen? Begin to think of how your life would be when you pass rather than, what if I fail? Well, you failed in the past. Does that mean you're going to fail today too? It's a new day. And it could be a new you. So if you worry too much, these are some tips for you. But don't keep it to yourself. Surround yourself with people who will not encourage you to worry. Surround yourself with people who will challenge you to think more positively about things than negatively.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, Elder Richard Crabbe. It's been a very wonderful hour we spent with you, hearing your wisdom and the information you provided for us. I'm sure that answers a lot of the questions that you came to this podcast with. That is learning how you can escape the anxiety trap by worrying less and caring more, and looking at the effect of anxiety on our relationships. On behalf of my production crew, on behalf of all the audience, I want to express our deepest gratitude to you, Elder Richard, for spending time with us. I know there's so much more we can learn from you. I will be happy to bring you back to share your wealth of experience with us on dealing with relationship matters. So just stand by. So as we go off, if you still have any questions you want us to address for you, please don't hesitate. The show may be over or the episode may be over, but we still have the bandwidth to continue answering your questions. So send in your questions and your comments, and I'll forward them to our guests today. Now, if you join us, I will continue with a series of other episodes. This is not the final thing we'll be looking at on this series. There will be many more topics that we'll be addressing. We'll be going into the Bible now, and we will have a series of messages or episodes for you to look at how God deals with our anxiety, the options he gives us, and all of that. So we are just 4 steps into that journey, and I'm very, very hopeful you will be blessed even as you follow us in this series. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Those who joined us online, thank you to our guests. And you've been watching the Fountain of Life podcast. May God richly bless you. And I hope you found this time spent with us very well for us. Let's see you again next week, Sunday, as we continue to find ways to escape the anxiety trap by worrying less and caring more. God richly bless you. Thank you for watching.
Worship you today. Lord, only you are. Yes, Lord. You restore my soul. I worship you today. Yeah.
The book of Matthew 11, 28 to 29. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest